Let's face it, keeping up with all the legal battles swirling around executive orders can feel, well, like a full-time job.
Oh, absolutely.
One week there's a new challenge, the next there's a ruling, and it's, easy to feel lost in the details.
Definitely.
So for this deep dive, we're going to try and cut through some of that noise and focus on a specific set of recent federal court decisions.
Okay.
These rulings pushed back against executive orders issued by President Trump that targeted law firms with ties to the Robert Mueller investigation.
Right, those specific orders.
We'll be digging into the legal and constitutional implications of these cases, drawing from an analysis by Glenn Kirshner. What's really at stake here? Let's find out together.
What's fascinating from the outset is seeing the judiciary stepping in to examine, the boundaries of executive power. You might have seen the CNN headline, "Judges block Trump executive order targeting law firms tied to Mueller probe."
I did see that headline, yeah.
Yeah. That headline itself tells a significant story. It wasn't just one judge with concerns. Multiple judges reached similar conclusions about these orders.
Exactly. And our source really hones in on two particularly noteworthy rulings. The first involves Judge John Bates and the executive order aimed at the law firm Jenner & Block. Now, here's a detail that really stood out to me. Judge Bates was appointed to the federal bench by Republican President George W. Bush back in 2001.
That's right, a Bush appointee.
That context is important, right? It suggests the concerns raised aren't necessarily rooted in, partisan divides.
Absolutely. It underscores that the issues at play here likely transcend political affiliations and delve into core principles of law and the Constitution. In the Jenner & Block case, Judge Bates issued a temporary restraining order. Think of that as a legal pause button on certain aspects of the executive order.
Okay, so which parts of the order did Judge Bates put on hold? The details here, as our source lays them out, really paint a picture of the order's reach.
They do.
He blocked the termination of contracts between federal agencies and Jenner & Block, as well as with the firm's clients.
Right, the contracts.
He also halted the limitations on the firm's access to federal officials and even federal buildings.
Access, yeah. That's key.
And it went further, didn't it? There were also restrictions on the government hiring former Jenner employees.
That's right. And Judge Bates's reasoning is key to understanding why he took this action. He essentially concluded that these directives likely violated the Constitution.
How so?
By retaliating against what is considered protected speech. Furthermore, he viewed it as a form of viewpoint discrimination, suggesting the executive order was targeting the firm precisely because of the nature of its work and the clients it represented.
Viewpoint discrimination. Okay. There's a quote from Judge Bates highlighted in our source that really brings his concerns into sharp focus. He described the language in Trump's orders, expressing a desire to sanction Jenner & Block for their pro bono work. That's free legal work.
Pro bono.
For causes the president disagreed with as disturbing and troubling.
Disturbing and troubling, yeah.
When you hear that, it really makes you think, doesn't it? Could the executive branch really penalize a law firm simply for taking on cases the president doesn't like?
It certainly raises a fundamental question about the independence of the legal profession. I mean, if law firms have to worry about potential repercussions for the clients they choose to represent,
Right.
could that lead to a situation where certain individuals or causes struggle to find legal representation? It could create a chilling effect on advocacy.
A chilling effect. Now, the second ruling our source focuses on involves Judge Richard Leon and the law firm WilmerHale.
WilmerHale, right.
Interestingly, just like Judge Bates, Judge Leon was also appointed by Republican President George W. Bush in his case in 2002.
Another Bush appointee, yes.
So again, we see a pattern of judges with, let's say, conservative backgrounds expressing serious reservations about these executive actions.
Exactly. And Judge Leon also issued an order blocking significant parts of the executive order targeting WilmerHale. Specifically, he prevented the government from denying the firm's attorneys access to federal buildings.
Again, access to buildings.
And from taking retaliatory actions against WilmerHale's clients who had government contracts.
The source quotes Judge Leon stating unequivocally, "There is no doubt this retaliatory action chills speech and legal advocacy, and that is qualified as a constitutional harm."
It's pretty forceful language from a federal judge, wouldn't you say?
It is very forceful. He's directly pinpointing the constitutional concern, the potential for this executive order to suppress free speech and, well, undermine the ability of lawyers to effectively represent their clients without fear of government reprisal. The transcript also notes Judge Leon's concern about the practical impact on clients. If clients worry that their attorney's access and effectiveness might be compromised due to these restrictions,
Yeah, they might leave.
they might feel compelled to seek legal counsel elsewhere.
Exactly.
Right, the real-world consequences seem significant. As the source details, the executive order against WilmerHale aimed to suspend security clearances and access to federal buildings for the firm's lawyers,
Security clearances, too. Wow.
curtail hiring from the firm, and even review and potentially terminate the firm's existing government contracts. It paints a picture of a really broad and potentially damaging set of penalties.
And it's in that context that Judge Leon really pressed at the Justice Department attorney, asking pointedly, wouldn't that uncertainty have a chilling effect? He even used a powerful analogy, comparing the order to a sword of Damocles hanging over the firm.
The sword of Damocles.
Yeah. That image really conveys the potential for these actions to create an atmosphere of fear and discourage, vigorous legal representation.
There's a moment in the transcript that really struck me. Judge Leon seemed almost taken aback by the DOJ lawyers' apparent inability to understand the practical difficulties of barring lawyers from federal buildings, including courthouses. His rather direct bravo moment where he asked, "Have you practiced law? Have you had clients? Then use your common sense," really highlights the disconnect he perceived between the government's legal arguments and the realities of legal practice.
Right. Use your common sense.
It wasn't just about abstract legal principles. It was about the very practical ability of lawyers to do their jobs and represent their clients.
That exchange truly gets to the heart of the matter. It underscores that these executive orders weren't just theoretical policy statements. They had tangible and potentially severe consequences for the targeted law firms and their clients.
Exactly.
A lawyer who can't access a courthouse can't effectively represent their client in court. It seems like a fundamental aspect of the legal system that the judge felt compelled to emphasize.
Such a basic point, almost. Now, our source also briefly touches on another ruling. This one's from Judge John Coffenauer concerning a different Trump executive order, the one related to birthright citizenship.
Ah, yes, the birthright citizenship order.
And again, the source makes a point of noting that Judge Coffenauer was appointed by a Republican president, Ronald Reagan, back in 1981.
A Reagan appointee this time.
Yes, and in that instance, Judge Coffenauer described the executive order on birthright citizenship as blatantly unconstitutional.
Blatantly unconstitutional.
Wow, this reinforces the broader point our source is making, that concerns about the constitutionality of certain executive actions during the Trump administration weren't limited to judges appointed by presidents of a particular party.
Right, it wasn't just a partisan issue. It seems these judges saw fundamental constitutional problems.
The source then briefly addresses potential responses that might be suggested, particularly in Republican circles, such as impeaching judges or even eliminating federal courts.
Yeah, those extreme ideas.
However, the commentary within the video transcript seems to dismiss these ideas as unlikely to come to fruition.
Well, while those suggestions might reflect strong disagreement with the court rulings, they would represent a significant departure from established legal and political norms and the fundamental principle of an independent judiciary within our system of checks and balances.
A huge departure.
The source seems to regard them more as expressions of frustration than realistic possibilities.
And the video transcript concludes with what it presents as the essential remedy: President Trump adhering to the law and the Constitution.
Simple as that, perhaps.
There's even a rather strong analogy used, comparing running the executive branch to a criminal enterprise, like a racketeer-influenced corrupt organization. That's a pretty stark way to put it.
It is, and it really underscores the source's perspective that the actions being challenged weren't merely policy disagreements, but rather potential abuses of executive authority that overstepped constitutional boundaries. The use of that analogy paints a picture of a disregard for legal and constitutional limitations, at least from the source's viewpoint.
So for you, the key takeaway from this deep dive is this: multiple federal judges, all appointed by Republican presidents, have raised serious concerns and ultimately blocked specific executive orders targeting law firms connected to the Mueller investigation.
That's a major point, yes.
Their primary concern centered on the idea that these orders likely retaliated against protected speech and constituted a form of viewpoint discrimination.
Exactly. These rulings really underscore the vital role of the judiciary in our system of checks and balances. Even when the executive branch takes action, those actions are subject to judicial review.
Right.
And can be invalidated if they are found to be inconsistent with the Constitution. It's a reminder that no branch of government operates without limitations.
And on that note, thinking about these rulings, it really makes you consider some fundamental questions. What do these decisions suggest about the inherent limits of executive power in our system?
A crucial question.
And perhaps even more importantly, what does it tell us about the absolutely crucial role of an independent judiciary in safeguarding our fundamental constitutional rights?
Indeed.
Think about the implications for the legal profession. Can lawyers truly provide the best possible representation for their clients if they or their firms face the potential for political retaliation simply for taking on certain cases or representing particular causes?
That chilling effect again.
It's definitely something important to reflect on as we navigate the complexities of our legal and political landscape.